Today's episode of True Crime Files is a little different than our normal presentations. We're going to be talking about a famous individual and a famous case, all in one. It's the Mickey Thompson case. Well, who was Mickey Thompson? Well, he was the fastest man on wheels. He set the speed record at Bonneville, Salt Flat. I think, what was it, 406 miles an hour in the Challenger 1. But he was also a famous race car driver, and he won more auto races than anyone. Then he went on into, high performance race parts. Everybody wanted them, as well as his tires, the Mickey Thompson tires that are still sold today. But he got most of his notoriety to the younger generation through the stadium racing. And he made it interesting, exciting. He put tons and tons of dirt in these stadiums with all these barriers. And then he raced these cars and trucks and motorcycles. Everybody loved it. So Mickey Thompson was a legend in his own time. So let's find out more about the Mickey Thompson case. Let's look at the facts. What are they? Well, what is our topic today? Killing of a legend. The death of Mickey Thompson, or the Michael Goodwin case. Well, what are the facts? Well, it all starts out going to work in the morning. Mickey Thompson and Trudy Thompson always would leave around 6 o'clock in the morning from their Bradbury Estate home, which is a very exclusive area, must be about 15 miles east of downtown Los Angeles, and they would drive to the Anaheim Stadium where they had their office. And that would be another maybe 15 miles just south of their house. Now they're getting ready, and Trudy is in the van, backing the van out. Now Mickey has to go around to the back door because the remote control for the garage door opener isn't working. So Trudy has backed the van out into the driveway, and here, this is the van she was driving, and she's waiting there for Mickey to come around. So Mickey has gone out the back door of the garage, and he's walking around, and there's a shot. He's shot in the leg. He goes down on his knees right there. He's not mortally wounded, but he's shot, goes down. Now Trudy, she was in the van, and she started backing up. Now we don't know whether she purposely, drove all the way down there and backed into the retaining wall or what happened, but what we do know is somebody was shooting at her, because you can see the driver's side window has been shot out. And she climbs out of the driver's seat, and she's going down the driveway. She's kind of clawing her way down that driveway as she's being shot at. And what we do know as far as the location of the two, Mickey is at the top of the driveway. That's where he's been shot, and he is kind of on his knees, still kind of leaning up, and he can see his wife, stumbling and going down the driveway to the very bottom, where a shooter comes up and executes her, just shoots her right in the head. And Mickey sees all of that. So this was devastating for him. And then somebody comes up out of the bushes there and shoots him in the head. So both of them are fatally shot right there on that driveway. Now, this gives you a better shot of where Trudy's body came to rest, right there in the gutter. And as far as Mickey, he's at the top. Now, he's been shot in the head as well at this time. And I put this together for the jury so they'd have an understanding where all of this takes place, because it's very confusing. That Bradbury Estate is a gated community, but it's not completely gated. And here, where that circle is the Thompson house, and it's right on the corner. And it's on Woodland Lane, which right at that point is a public road, and then on the other side is Mount Olive Drive. However, when you get to there, there's a gate, and from that side going to the left is part of the gated community of Bradbury Estate. So that's where the house is located, and we had this put together so that the jury would see where the house is, because there's confusion as to the driveway. There's two driveways. This is, well, I guess you'd call it the formal driveway. They didn't use it that much, but it had big gates on it, and this is where Mickey always parked his famous Lincoln, right in front of the house. And this is the van. Where the van came to rest was right there. And this is the driveway we're going to be talking about. This is where both Mickey and Trudy were executed, right there. So that gives you an idea of where it happens. Now, when they're shot, the neighbors hear the shots, and there was a 12-year-old girl who was getting up, getting ready for school, and her father is there. They look down from their kitchen window, and they can see Trudy being shot by somebody, and also a little higher up, they can see Mickey being shot. And then there's noise as though these people are on a bicycle. You can hear the clinging of the chain of the bicycles as they are going up and down the hillside there. So this gives you a view as to what those witnesses saw. They looked down. This is the view from their house down, and this is what they saw, the view. And there you can see the circle. That's where Trudy's body is, covered by a blanket right now. But they had a clear view of the people executing both Trudy and Mickey. Now, there is another witness, and that witness is Dr. Johnson, who lives directly behind the Thompsons. And he's asleep, and he hears the screaming and the gunshots, and he gets up and he looks out his windows, second floor bedroom, and he can't see where Mickey is being shot, but he can hear Mickey's voice and the screaming that he had, and the shots continued. And so he's looking out, and he can see two male blacks on bicycles pedaling by his place. Now, this is the path that they took between the Thompson house and Dr. Johnson's house, going down this roadway. And here, they get on Woodland Lane. So he gets a very good view right here. This is where Dr. Johnson gets a good view of them as they're pedaling by right at that point. They continue through Bradbury Estate, and I have the map here so the jury could see the pathway that they took. Right there, you can see them going this way, and they come all the way over to Royal Oak Drive. Now, this is important as to what happens there. They're pedaling along, and there's a gate there, but there isn't a guardhouse. It's an automatic gate, and they're able to get through it because it isn't securely locked. So they're coming down where those arrows are, and they make the turn where Royal Oak Drive is, and there's a car coming along with the lady, and she has her dog on the front seat, and she has to put on the brakes real fast, and one of the bicyclists falls down right in front of her, right there. And she gets a very good look at both of them, especially the one that kind of fell off his bike. He got back on the bike. And this is a little better view, showing right there where the circle is where she was able to get a good view of them. Now, later on, she met with the forensic artists from the Sheriff's Department, and this is the sketch that she helped put together of the two male blacks that she saw riding the bicycles across Royal Oaks Drive there. Now, when they went through there, what was remarkable, they went through this little fence area, just a small area. You know, a car couldn't get through there, or the only thing that could go through there is a person who's walking or somebody on a bicycle. So once they passed through there, they were kind of home free. No one is going to be able to catch up with them, because they're on a bicycle lane that goes for miles and miles. So the two bicyclists, they continue to ride those bicycles along that bike lane over to Mount Olive. And there's a lady driving. She's going to work, and she's at the stop sign there, and she sees these two bicyclists, going past in front of her, and it seemed they were going so fast, and they kept looking behind them, and she got a good view of both of them, and she helped with the other lady come up with this sketch of the two shooters, bicyclists. All right, so the deputy sheriffs are called out to the scene, and the homicide detectives arrive, and they're trying to look for evidence. What evidence is there? Is there anything that is going to be useful in indicating who the shooters are? So here is what we have that as far as checking out on the driveway. There's a lot of shell casings or cartridges, and there were broken fingernails, but there was a stun gun. There it is. You see that stun gun. Why is there a stun gun on the driveway? It has some tape on it at the bottom, but it had batteries in it, and it worked. So we're going to be talking about that a little bit later. Now, this is where the various things were found. The evidence on the driveway, you can see fingernails, spent casings, live rounds, all various things. This is by Trudy's body down at the bottom. Then as you worked your way up, there were the broken fingernails, and then as you got further up, there were more shell casings around where Mickey's body was recovered. So that's the location of the evidence that is found there. And what does it reveal? Well, it reveals that there's two guns, two separate 9mm that were used. They were semi-automatic because they were expelling the spent cartridges. So it tells us something, but we don't recover any gun. So as far as clues, looking at the bodies, Mickey had been shot numerous times and had been executed, shot in the temple of his head. So, and they were at close range. Some of the later shots in here was Trudy, and she had been shot several times and had been shot right in the head, and that was her fingernails had been broken off, and they matched the broken fingernails on the driveway. Now, the detectives looked at the van to see if it would reveal any clues to it, and when they got inside it, they noticed there was a lot of jewelry. There was a bag, it was full of gold jewelry, and what happened every morning, Trudy didn't have time to select her various jewelry that she wanted to wear that day, so she kept it in the van, and she would select as they're driving to Anaheim Stadium to the office, she would pick out what she wanted. So all of that jewelry, expensive jewelry, was still there. It hadn't been taken, so it doesn't look like a robbery. So what do we end up? What evidence do we have? Well, as we said, there's no firearm that is recovered. Now we have shell casings, we have some unspent rounds, there's some footprints there, but they're not very revealing, and we don't have any shoe that have been recovered. Now the stun gun did not have a serial number on it. No bicycles were recovered near Bradbury Estates, and we know a car wasn't used. So basically, there was no useful forensic evidence. Wow, going to be a tough case. What was mentioned by Dr. Johnson and one of the other neighbors, they said that Mickey had mentioned to him that if anything ever happened to him, that it might have something to do with the ex-partner. There were some hard feelings there. But it was just a comment that was made, and so they checked it out. The detectives sent people down to meet with the ex-partner, and what they found out, he didn't look anything like what the witnesses indicated. He wasn't black, he wasn't young, and when they asked him, where were you? He was at a gym in Costa Mesa, and there were over a dozen people who could attest that he was, at 6 o'clock that morning, he was working out at that gym. So he was not a suspect any longer. Now, let's talk about Mickey and Trudy Thompson. Well, how did they get together? Well, it was through Mickey's sister, Colleen Campbell. She was involved in kind of introducing him. There was a difference in their age, but they had a lot in common. They liked automobiles, and they dated a while. They got married, and what turned out was one of the most successful marriages, as well as many people call them the dynamic duo when it comes to any type of business work. Mickey was so good at promoting. He could promote all of the stadium racing. It was very successful. And as far as the detail work, Trudy could do that. She knew how to contact people, how to work with people, how to negotiate with people, and they made tons and tons of money throughout the entire United States, having these stadiums filled with dirt and all the race cars and trucks and motorcycles. Very, very successful. So it worked out very, very well until about 1983. And Trudy, she worked very hard, long hours, putting all this together. Her health was starting to fail. And Mickey recognized it and knew that something had to be done. He didn't want to give up the business because, it made a lot of money. And it was basically his name, Mickey Thompson. So he was looking for a partner, somebody he could line up with who could continue the business, the stadium racing. And he had heard about Michael Goodwin. He had been in the business, and he was mainly in motorcycle racing in the stadiums. He was not as big as Mickey Thompson, but yes, he had done it to a smaller scale. And they decided to set up this partnership between the two of them. And it looked like a perfect setup between the two of them because they both were into stadium racing. Now, Mickey had the reputation. Every venue, every stadium liked dealing with him because they could trust him. And they didn't even require him to put a down payment or a deposit. He was that well thought of. Goodwin, on the other hand, didn't have the reputation. So it was good for Goodwin because he was younger. He had the time to do it, maybe not the reputation. So it looked perfect. As far as the profits from it, Mickey would get only 30% of the profits, or he'd have to pay the expenses. And Goodwin, since he's putting in the day-to-day work on it, he'd get 70% of the profits and pay the expenses. So that was the breakdown of the partnership. And it started going, and they started having a number of races in the Midwest. And some of them didn't work out. They weren't making money off them, and some of it had to do with weather. The weather wasn't good in some of the places. But Goodwin would not pay the stadium. He would not pay the vendors if they didn't make money. And his comment was, hey, we didn't make any money on it, so I'm not going to pay them anything. And Mickey said, wait, that's not the way this business is run. We still owe money, and we have to pay him. And Goodwin said, nope, no way will I. And so Mickey on his own paid all those vendors in the Midwest who Goodwin hadn't paid. And so Mickey says, look, I'm going to terminate our partnership. You're not keeping your part of the bargain on this. So that was the end of the partnership. And it lasted for, maybe 9 months. It didn't even make 1 year. Well, what was the result of it is Mickey says, you owe me money I paid, and it wasn't a large amount. It was only $514,000. As we say, is chump change for both of them. But Mickey says, you owe it. And Goodwin says, I'm not going to pay a dime because we didn't make money on any of those stadium events. So lawsuits were between the two of them. And they went up to the Supreme Court twice to the Supreme Court. Mickey always won. He won every one of those lawsuits. And now he has a judgment. He has a judgment, and he's going to collect. He's going to get the money from Goodwin. And he found out, Goodwin's pride and joy was a classic Mercedes that he had. And what Mickey did was he contacted U.S. Marshal's office and said, hey, go out there and pick up that car. And he did. The Marshal's office picked up the car of Goodwin, and Goodwin was livid. He wasn't very happy for what Mickey had done to take his car away to help pay for the $514,000. So at this point, I guess you could say it had become personal. Here we have two giant egos, and neither one likes to lose. And they took it to the extreme. Mickey then went after every asset that Goodwin or his wife had. Then what Goodwin did, he declared business bankruptcy. So all the business that he was doing on his own, Mickey couldn't get any of it. And then he went after him personally as far as personal bankruptcy. And Goodwin again went back into bankruptcy court. He wouldn't give a dime to Mickey. Anyway, when it came to trial, I wanted the jury to see all of these lawsuits because this is the motive. These two men had been fighting each other in court for years and years. Look at all these lawsuits between the two of them. So you can see what the motive was. But now, Mickey has won all the legal lawsuits, and Goodwin has lost. But how can Goodwin get even with Mickey? Well, what is the most important thing to Mickey? Well, there was no question. Everybody would agree. Trudy was everything for Mickey. Mickey was, he was a big promoter, but, he couldn't do anything without Trudy. Trudy was invaluable. They had a very strong bond between the two of them. So Goodwin knew that the most important thing to Mickey was Trudy, so if he could take care of Trudy, that would be the worst thing that could ever befall Mickey. So, as we know, how did it all end? Mickey is at the top, and he has to watch his wife, Trudy, be executed at the bottom of the driveway. His last visions of life was seeing his wife killed. Wow. That has to be the worst thing imaginable that Mickey would go through. So how is Goodwin going to get away with this? Well, he made sure that the people who did the killing didn't look anything like him. They were young male blacks, and he had a solid alibi. He was surrounded by many people who said, nope, I was with him at the time. So the case is not solved. We know where Mickey and Trudy are buried, but there's no case. The Los Angeles District Attorney's Office said, well, we don't have enough evidence. We don't have enough evidence to go after anybody. So the Mickey Thompson, Trudy Thompson case went into the cold case cabinet, and that's where it stayed from 1988 to 1999. At that time, the Sheriff's Department, the homicide rate was down, and they had more time to go back and work on those cold cases. And at the same time, Mickey Thompson's sister, Colleen Campbell, she kept, explaining to the sheriff's department, you really need to spend more time investigating Michael Goodwin. He had the motive. He had the motive to go after Mickey. So it was most likely 1999, the sheriff's department assigned a new detective to look at all those boxes of evidence, those interviews, and every piece of evidence that had ever been acquired during all those years. And what was it? Well, they came across a statement in there from a deputy sheriff saying that he had come in contact with one of the neighbors of Mickey Thompson, and the couple came up to him and said, oh, 2 days before, we saw somebody parked next to our house with binoculars, and that's the roadway that goes right up to Mickey Thompson's house. And they said it was very suspicious. And they said, oh, what did they look like? He said, well, it was a white male, about 40, had reddish hair, and gave a description that was very, very similar to Goodwin. So this young detective, gets photographs of Goodwin and others and shows it to this couple. And this is where their house was. It's right down there at the base of Mount Olive and Royal Oaks. And they could see every car that would go up. See, this is the roadway. Now, they're right there. It's where they saw a station wagon parked on the wrong side of the street with somebody with binoculars looking at everyone who went up and down that roadway up to Mickey Thompson's house. So when they had a lineup, here you can see that witness and his wife picked out Goodwin as the person they saw in that car with the binoculars, and that person sat there for maybe 5-10 minutes. So they got a good view of him. So now we have something. We have this new evidence. And the evidence, where could the case be prosecuted? Well, the LADA's office hadn't gotten involved in it. However, that stun gun that was found on the driveway there, it was determined that it had been purchased in Orange County, in Costa Mesa, at a gun shop there. So the district attorney's office from Orange County felt that they had enough where they could file the charges of conspiracy to commit murder. In other words, when you commit a conspiracy to commit murder, any part of that conspiracy, if it takes place in your county, that county can prosecute. So that gave the authority to Orange County to prosecute Goodwin on the basis that stun gun was purchased in Orange County, and we know that Goodwin had a stun gun just like that. So that was the reason, what we call the nexus, that Orange County had for filing the charges. But Goodwin takes it up on appeal, takes it up to the appellate court saying, no, Orange County can't do it. Now he knows that the Los Angeles County District Attorney's Office has not indicated that they would prosecute him. They didn't feel that there was enough evidence. So the appellate court, considers, and on April 2004, they made a ruling. And the appellate court ruled that the Orange County District Attorney's Office could not prosecute Goodwin. The only DA's office that could prosecute Goodwin was the Los Angeles County DA's office. Wow. Wow. Now, what's going to happen in this case? Goodwin is in custody, and the appellate court says, look, Los Angeles County District Attorney's Office, I will give you 10 days, and you better make up your mind whether you want to prosecute Goodwin or not. We will keep him in custody until 10 days run out, and then we're going to release him. So the pressure was on. And what's going to happen? We have the Sheriff's Department, we have the Los Angeles County District Attorney's Office, and the idea is, what can we put together? Motive to kill, Goodwin's statements, consciousness of guilt. It's going to have to be a teamwork effort of everybody. Well, these are the statements that were made by Goodwin. Goodwin was very cocky, and he told many people that he was going to get Mickey. Mickey had made his life miserable, and he wasn't able to hold any events any longer because nobody trusted him. So he said he was going to take care of Mickey. And there was a number of those statements that he had made, and one time on the telephone, you know, one of his secretaries overheard him say, "Mickey, I can have you taken care of at any time." So all those statements are collected, and then the idea was to check about the consciousness of guilt. Why did he take all his money? Goodwin, whatever money he had it sent out to the Cayman Islands in the Caribbean. So he had these crewgrams, he had money transferred right after Mickey's death, and the other was, you know, he left the area shortly thereafter, and he bought this yacht, I guess you'd call it, a very nice sailing boat, from a bank. He got a bank to give him a loan, and he bought this yacht, and he took off for the Caribbean. In other words, he has left Los Angeles and cannot be talked to or seen because he is somewhere in the Caribbean where he cannot be contacted. So that is what he has done. Well, the question is there sufficient evidence for the Los Angeles County District Attorney's Office to prosecute? What happened was that all those files from the Orange County District Attorney's Office ended up in my office. I was told, we have 10 days to make a decision, so take all those boxes, look at them, see if there's a way we can get enough evidence where we can bring charges against Goodwin. So I spent about 5 of those days going through every piece of, every document in all those boxes, and I was able to make a very strong argument that we had enough evidence of motive as far as incriminating statements, and all these other pieces of evidence showed that Goodwin was the person who did or was behind the shooting. Even though he didn't physically do the shooting, he was the one who set it up. So that was the evidence that was put together, and the LADA's office worked day and night because we had a very short window of time because Goodwin had a right to a speedy trial. So Pat Dixon and Alan Jackson from the Major Crimes Division tried the case. I worked with them extensively, getting all the exhibits and everything ready so that they would have it ready to go. And it was tried in Pasadena at the Pasadena court, and Alan Jackson did the opening statement on it, and this was a jury field trip up to the Thompson house where the jurors could see where it happened in the driveway there. And it was, the case was vigorously fought by the defense, and the result of it was that Goodwin was found guilty of 2 first-degree murders, and he was sentenced. And the sentence was life without the possibility of parole. Wow. It took 18 years for this case to be finally solved and resolved. And here you can see Mickey Thompson's sister, Colleen Campbell, with the winning flag there. Took a long time, but justice was finally done. Well, if you want more details on the Mickey Thompson case, get my book, Killing of a Legend, and it's all spelled out in there. And it's a fascinating case because it went unsolved for so long, and it took a detective with a different slant on it, and it took a lot of work from the prosecution side of it, and we were able to make a case, and we got a conviction. Well, hopefully you enjoyed this episode and learned something new about Mickey Thompson, and hopefully you'll join us again for another True Crime Files podcast when we talk about another case from beginning to end. See you then.